Imagine waking up in the year 1350. Your chest feels heavy, you haven't left your bed in 3 days, you cry over burnt porridge, and you cannot explain why. Today, we would call this depression. But in the Middle Ages, they called it something else, something darker. Demons. What did it really mean to be sad, anxious, or simply different? In a time before psychology, before therapy, before anyone believed the mind could get sick. Stay with me. Before we enter this dark chapter of history, take a moment to subscribe to Little Historical. And if this story moves you, leave a like. It helps more people find these forgotten truths. Now, dim the lights, let the fire crackle, and let's journey back to a time when the cure for a broken mind was a hole in the skull. What happened to your mind in the Middle Ages if it stopped working the way it should? Not your body, your mind. If you heard voices that weren't there, if you couldn't get out of bed for weeks, if you laughed at a funeral and cried at a feast, would they help you? Or would they burn you? Tonight, we are not telling stories of kings or battles. We are telling the story of something every human has faced, but almost nobody in medieval times understood. Mental health. This is Little Historical. If you are new here, please subscribe. And if you are ready for the truth, press like. It tells me you want more stories like this. Now, close your eyes if you wish, or keep them open, but listen closely, because the answers may surprise you and disturb you. There is a hidden history that textbooks rarely tell you. Not about wars, not about kings. About what happened to the troubled mind in the Middle Ages. We assume people back then were ignorant, superstitious, cruel. And sometimes they were. But the full truth is stranger, sadder, and more fascinating than you might imagine. What if I told you that some medieval communities cared for the mentally ill with surprising kindness, and others drilled holes in their heads to let the demons escape? Both stories are real. Both happened, and tonight we will uncover them together. Before we begin, help me keep this channel alive. Subscribe to Little Historical. And if you are curious about the real past, hit that like button. Now, let the quiet settle around you. Imagine a cold stone room, a single candle, and a story that has waited 700 years to be told. Imagine waking in the year 1350, not to the sound of birds or bells, but to a weight on your chest so heavy you cannot rise. Your eyes open to a ceiling of dark, smoke-stained timber. Beside you, the straw mattress is cold. No one has come to check on you, not your husband, not your mother. Because in this world, a mind that suffers in silence is a mind that is simply inconvenient. You try to speak, to explain the hollow ache behind your ribs, the way food has lost its taste, the way the future feels like a slow, dark flood. But when you finally stumble into the village square, pale and unwashed, your neighbor does not offer tea or a kind ear. She clutches her crucifix, she looks at the sky, and she whispers a word that turns your blood to ice. Demons. Dardas. This is what passes for diagnosis in the Middle Ages, not a consultation, but a condemnation. Because in the 14th century, a troubled mind was never just a troubled mind, it was a moral failing, a spiritual crack, an open door through which the devil might slip. And the most terrifying part? The person who once loved you, who shared your bread, your bed, your name, might be the first to lock you away. Not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Fear that your sadness is contagious. Fear that your sleepless whispers will draw the moon's evil eye. Fear that the church will accuse them of harboring a witch. So they do the merciful thing. They send you to the priest. And the priest, in his black robe, does not ask how you feel. He asks when you last confessed. He asks if you have touched yourself in sin. He asks if the voices in your head told you to curse God. And no matter what you answer, the conclusion is already written. You are unbalanced. You are possessed. You are a problem that requires not compassion, but correction. What follows is not therapy. It is theatre. Holy water, Latin chanting, and the cold press of a relic against your forehead while you kneel on stone until your knees bleed. And if you cry out, they say the devil is fighting back. If you faint, they say the demon is strong. But if you simply sit there, silent and exhausted, they say you are resisting grace. There is no winning. There is only the slow, grinding erosion of a soul already fragile. And somewhere, in the darkest corner of the village, an old woman watches. She does not cross herself. She does not whisper about demons. She knows the herbs that calm a racing heart. She knows the tea that quiets a waking nightmare. But she will not speak up. Because the last time she helped a sad young woman, they called her a witch too. So you are left alone with your black bile and your moon-touched brain, kneeling in a cold chapel, while the priest's voice drones on. And the only thought that keeps you sane is this: at least they haven't drilled the hole yet. You whisper that prayer to yourself as you rise from the cold stone floor, your knees raw, your throat dry from the Latin you did not understand. At least they haven't drilled the hole yet. Asda. But even as you think it, you know the thought is fragile. Because in the next room, the barber surgeon is sharpening his tools. Not for a battle wound. For you. This is the part the priest does not mention during confession, the part the herbalist dare not speak aloud. When prayer fails, when the holy water only makes you weep harder, the church gives its silent blessing for the next tier of treatment. Not medicine, not rest, but trepanation, the belief that madness is a physical thing, a spirit or a vapor trapped inside your skull, pressing against the brain like a fist against a locked door. And the only way to let it out is to make a door, a hole, drilled slowly, carefully, while you are held down by men who were your neighbors yesterday. You can almost feel it now, can't you? The cold press of the iron bit against your temple, the slow, grinding vibration as it bores through bone. The strange, wet sound that comes just before the pressure releases. Some people, they say, sit up immediately afterward, their eyes clear, their voice calm. The demon, they declare, has fled through the opening. Others wake up changed, slower, blank, as if the thing that left took something essential with it. And some do not wake at all. But no one talks about them. Because in a world without antibiotics, without anesthesia, without any real understanding of infection, a hole in the skull is not a cure. It is a gamble, a desperate, bloody roll of the dice played not by you, but by the men who hold you down. And the most unsettling truth? Many medieval people believed this worked. Not because of evidence, but because of hope. The same hope that makes a dying man drink poison. The same hope that makes a grieving woman visit a tomb at midnight. You want so badly for the sadness to leave that you will let anyone with a sharp tool try to cut it out. But the hole heals if you survive. The scar tissue pulls tight, and the black bile, it returns. Because no drill, no matter how deep, has ever reached the place where sorrow lives. So you lie there, blood matting your hair, the world slightly muffled now, and you listen to the barber surgeon wash his hands in the same bucket he uses for the pigs. And somewhere beyond the village wall, the old herbalist is grinding valerian root into a powder she will never dare to offer you. Because mercy, in the Middle Ages, wears a mask. And tonight, that mask has a hole in the forehead. And somewhere beyond the village wall, the old herbalist is grinding valerian root into a powder she will never dare to offer you. Because mercy, in the Middle Ages, wears a mask. And tonight, that mask has a hole in the forehead. But let us stop here for a moment, because the story of the drill, as terrible as it is not the end of your journey. It is only the beginning of a much stranger truth. You see, for every patient who was bled, prayed over, or trepanned, there were others who never saw the barber's knife or the priest's holy water. Others who suffered not in a chapel or a surgery, but in a place far more public, far more shameful. Imagine, if you will, that you survived the drilling. The wound healed, the scar faded beneath your hair, and the sadness did not return. But your neighbors still remember. They remember the way you screamed when they held you down. They remember the things you said about the moon, about the voices, about your own mother. And now, when you walk to the well, the other women step aside. When you sit in church, the men shift to the other pew. You have not been cured. You have been marked, and the mark is not on your skull. It is on your name. This is the quiet horror of medieval mental health, the part no history book likes to linger on. Not the dramatic exorcisms or the bloody surgeries, but the slow, suffocating isolation of being known as unstable. Your husband begins to sleep in the barn. Your children are told not to disturb you. The priest visits less often because he has decided your condition is spiritual laziness, astata, a sin called acedia, and the cure for sin is not kindness, but penance. So you are given tasks, endless, pointless tasks. Scrub the stone floor until your fingers bleed. Count every grain of wheat in the storage bin. Memorize the Latin names of every saint, in order, backward. And if you fail, if you weep again, if you admit that the prayer beads feel like stones and the chanting sounds like flies buzzing, then it is not your mind that is broken. It is your soul. And a broken soul in the Middle Ages is a dangerous thing. Because if the church cannot save you, and the surgeon cannot drain you, and the herbs cannot calm you, then the village will protect itself. Not with a jail cell, not with a hospital bed, but with something far older. A locked room at the edge of town, a window too high to reach, a door that does not open from the inside. They call it protective isolation. A gentle phrase for a gentle cage. And as the key turns in the lock, you realize the most terrible truth of all. They do not hate you, they are simply afraid. And fear, in the Middle Ages, has a very long memory. And as the key turns in the lock, you realize the most terrible truth of all. They do not hate you, they are simply afraid. And fear, in the Middle Ages, has a very long memory. But even as the bolt slides home, even as the high window casts a single slash of moonlight across the stone floor, you are not entirely alone. Listen. Do you hear it? Just outside the door, barely a whisper, the soft rustle of skirts. It is the herbalist, the same old woman you saw grinding valerian root by candlelight. She cannot free you. She dare not speak your name in public. But she has brought something small, hidden in the folds of her woolen dress. A cup. Warm, fragrant. It smells of chamomile and something else, something honey-sweet and faintly bitter. She slides it under the door without a word. And for one brief, forbidden moment, you are not a sinner, not a lunatic, not a vessel for demons. You are simply a person holding a cup of tea, while an old woman sits with her back against the cold stone, keeping you company in silence. This is the secret history of medieval mental health. Not the exorcisms or the bloodletting, but the quiet resistance of women who knew better. Women who understood that a racing heart could be soothed, that a sleepless mind could be quieted, that despair was not a demon, but a wound. They had no degrees, no licenses, no permission from the church. They had gardens, they had grandmothers, they had recipes passed down in whispers from one generation to the next, recipes that would one day become the foundation of modern pharmacology. St. John's wort for the black sadness, lavender for the racing thoughts. lemon balm for the panic that rises in the chest like a trapped bird. They could not save everyone. They could not stop the priests, or the surgeons, or the locked rooms. But they could sit outside a door, in the dark, holding a cup of tea for a woman the world had already buried. And sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. Because the medieval mind did not distinguish between the body and the soul, the physical and the spiritual, the sane and the damned. But the herbalist? She distinguished. She saw you. Not your sin, not your humors, not your moon-touched madness. Just you. And in a world that drilled holes in skulls to let demons escape, that simple act of seeing was its own kind of miracle. The tea grows cold, the moonlight shifts, and somewhere in the village, a bell tolls for midnight prayers. But for now, in this small, dark space, you are not a patient. You are not a prisoner. You are a woman drinking chamomile with a friend on the other side of the door. And that, perhaps, is the most radical treatment of all.